The wind howled across the dark hills of Poitiers, carrying with it the scent of rain and the echo of distant thunder. A single candle flickered in the window of the abbey, its frail light trembling as if aware of the omen that night would bring. Brother Arnaud de Rochefort pulled his cloak tighter, urging his horse forward through the mud-soaked path. He carried no banner, no retinue, only a sealed satchel bound in crimson wax, pressed against his chest as though it held his soul. Behind him, lightning illuminated the monastery's towers for the final time. The brothers watched from their cells, whispering prayers for his return, though each knew he would not come back. Somewhere between the forest and the storm, the messenger vanished, leaving behind only hoofprints that ended in water, and a silence that has haunted centuries. When the first light of dawn broke through the remnants of the storm, the monastery bell did not ring. The air was unnaturally still, thick with the scent of wet earth and ash. From the mist emerged Arnaud's horse, its mane tangled, eyes wild, foam crusted along its bridle. The brothers rushed to meet it, yet froze when they saw the empty saddle. No blood, no sign of struggle, just a deep imprint where the night once sat. The animal trembled, refusing to enter the abbey gates as if some invisible boundary terrified it. Within the hour, riders were dispatched to scour the forest trails. They found shattered branches, a torn scrap of fabric, and then nothing, no body, no weapon, not even footprints, beyond a certain bend. By evening, the local commander of the order arrived. His expression was cold, almost rehearsed. He gave no blessing, no explanation, only a single parchment sealed with the Templar cross. Arnaud de Rochefort is to be stricken from the records. Speak his name no more. The monks obeyed, but unease lingered. Some whispered that Arnaud had been taken by divine wrath. Others murmured darker things, that he had seen what no man was meant to see, and the order itself had silenced him. Long after, travelers would claim that on stormy nights they still heard hooves in the valley, echoes of a rider searching for something lost to time. Rumors spread like wildfire through the cloisters and taverns alike. Brother Arnaud, they said, had not been riding alone in the night. He had been guarding something, a chest small enough to be carried on horseback, but sealed with the crimson wax of the Grand Master himself. The wax bore the twin cross insignia, a mark reserved for relics of the highest secrecy. No one knew its contents. Some whispered of ancient scrolls retrieved from the ruins of Jerusalem, others of a relic so sacred that even to glimpse it unbidden was to invite eternal damnation. When the search party returned from the forest, they carried only fragments, a scorched scrap of parchment, its Latin words half destroyed by flame, custos lux, the keeper of the light. The commander who examined it ordered it burned completely. Witnesses recalled his hands shaking as the ashes scattered into the rain. In the days that followed, strange men visited the monastery. They bore no Templar insignia, yet the brothers recognized them by their silence, their black cloaks, and their wax seals. They took every record mentioning Arnaud, every ledger, every page. What they left behind was absence, a deliberate void. And yet, secrets have a way of surviving. Decades later, a forgotten inventory surfaced in a hidden archive in Paris, listing one sealed coffer, destination unknown. The line was crossed out as if by a trembling hand. What could a single Templar knight have carried that frightened kings, silenced monks, and erased his very name from history? Whatever it was, it vanished with him into the storm, leaving behind only the faint smell of smoke and a question that has never been answered. Within the Order of the Temple, silence was not a choice, it was law. Bound by oath and blood, every knight swore never to reveal the missions entrusted to him, not even under pain of death. Secrets were the lifeblood of the Templars, woven into their prayers and rituals, hidden beneath the white mantle and red cross that the world admired yet never understood. Their archives were sealed, their words coded, their meetings guarded by vows older than kingdoms. Those who broke that silence were not punished, they were erased. No execution, no trial, no burial, only disappearance. In the official rolls, their names were scraped away, leaving pale scars on parchment where lives once stood recorded. To the outside world, it seemed divine discipline. Within the order, it was fear, disguised as devotion. For the Templars knew that knowledge was power, and some knowledge, once spoken aloud, could unmake empires. Beneath the cobbled streets of modern Paris lies a forgotten world, a labyrinth of stone corridors, untouched for centuries. It was during a routine metro expansion in the late 1990s that workers first struck something unusual. A sealed archway carved with symbols that no one recognized. When archaeologists were called in, they discovered an entire network of tunnels running beneath what had once been the Templar commandery of the Temple Quarter, the beating heart of their operations in medieval France. Dust-covered walls bore markings faint but deliberate, crosses intertwined with serpents, Latin phrases half erased by time, and geometric sigils that defied known Templar iconography. One chamber in particular stood out. Its circular design mirrored that of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, suggesting a ritual significance. At its center lay a stone altar, its surface etched with concentric circles and a single inscription, Lux, occulta, custodita. The hidden light is kept. Historians debated whether these were remnants of secret rites or merely defensive structures, but nothing about their layout fit military logic. The tunnels led nowhere, looping back into themselves like a maze designed to mislead. Some believed they were sanctuaries for forbidden relics or clandestine meetings, where truths too dangerous for daylight were spoken. When the site was quietly resealed months later, officials cited structural instability. Yet whispers among the excavation team told a different story of electromagnetic interference, unrecorded symbols appearing overnight, and a sense of being watched in the darkness below Paris. Whatever purpose those chambers once served, the Templars ensured it would remain buried. Among the yellowed archives of the Inquisition lies a fragment of testimony dated 1311, taken from a trembling monk named Brother Mathieu of Limoges. His confession, extracted under oath and fear, mentions a figure he called the lost courier of the Grail. According to Mathieu, this courier had vanished after witnessing what was not meant to be seen, a phrase the interrogators circled twice in crimson ink. When pressed, the monk refused to elaborate, saying only that the man had carried a relic of unbearable light. The record is incomplete. Several pages were torn away, but a surviving marginal note references one of the knights of Rochefort. Historians dismiss it as coincidence, yet the timing aligns too closely with Arnaud's disappearance to ignore. If Mathieu spoke truth, then Arnaud's mission may have involved something far greater than an ordinary dispatch. A relic tied, at least symbolically, to the Grail itself. The Inquisition sealed the transcript shortly afterward, labeling it periculosum, dangerous. Those who attempted to reopen the file later found it missing from the archives altogether. All that remains is a single notation in the register. The courier is lost, but the burden endures. Whether that burden was a secret, an object, or a curse, no one can say. But the line between myth and record grows thin when written in the ink of fear. In 1894, during the renovation of an abandoned chapel near Carcassonne, a laborer's chisel struck something hollow behind a crumbling altar stone. Inside the cavity lay a sealed tube of darkened copper, wrapped in oilcloth and stamped with the unmistakable sigil of the Templars. Within it, carefully preserved by centuries of silence, was a letter written in flowing, archaic Latin, its ink faded yet legible enough to chill the blood of those who read it. The letter spoke of a miles destinatus et custodiendam lucemsionis, a knight sent to guard the light of Zion. The author described his duty not as a mission of faith, but of containment, warning that the light must never fall into hands unprepared for its truth. The tone was confessional, almost desperate, as if written by a man aware that time and betrayal were closing in. At the bottom, beneath a smeared Templar seal, was a signature, Arnaud de Rochefort. Scholars debated its authenticity, some calling it an elaborate forgery, others insisting the ink and parchment matched 14th century materials. Yet one unsettling fact remained. Its phrasing mirrored the final entries from lost Templar manuscripts, rumored to have vanished the same year Arnaud disappeared. Whether it was a farewell, a warning, or a plea for absolution, the letter suggested that the vanished knight had left behind more than mystery. He had left a message intended for those who would one day uncover the truth he died protecting. When the letter of Arnaud de Rochefort was subjected to ultraviolet examination in 1902, faint markings emerged between the lines, symbols invisible to the naked eye, circles intersected by crosses, petals surrounding a single flame, and a motif resembling a blooming rose cradling a star. These designs bore no resemblance to known Templar insignia. Instead, they aligned with emblems later used by the Rosicrucians, an esoteric order that would not appear in recorded history until the early 17th century, nearly 300 years after Arnaud's disappearance. How could such symbols exist centuries before their supposed origin? Some historians dismissed it as coincidence, but others saw a deeper connection, suggesting that the roots of Rosicrucian mysticism might have begun within the dying breath of the Templar Brotherhood itself. The encoded symbols, when arranged in sequence, formed a phrase, lux in abscondido renascitur, light is reborn in secrecy. To some, it was merely poetic metaphor. To others, it was an encrypted declaration, a promise that the Templar light, and perhaps the secret Arnaud guarded, did not vanish with the fall of the order. Instead, it may have simply changed its name, waiting for the right century to rise again. In 1937, a researcher working within the archives of the Diocese of Carcassonne recorded a brief but troubling entry in his catalog ledger, Epistola Templari, confiscata a Sancta Sede. The note referred unmistakably to the very letter discovered in 1894, the one signed by Arnaud de Rochefort. Within weeks, Vatican envoys arrived quietly in the region. The letter was taken from local custody, placed into an unmarked chest, and transported to Rome under guard. Its inventory classification read simply, non licet videre, forbidden to view. No photographs were permitted. No transcripts survived. The archivist who logged the transfer vanished from record 2 years later. The only surviving document from the seizure is a memorandum bearing the seal of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. It reads, in part, material concerning the Luxionis is to remain sealed until such a time as the Church deems humanity ready to bear its light. What light was so dangerous that even the Vatican feared it? Was the letter merely heretical speculation or evidence of a secret lineage the Church had long sought to erase? To this day, no one outside the Vatican has seen the document again. It rests somewhere deep within the restricted vaults of the Apostolic Archive, guarded not by soldiers, but by silence. In the summer of 1971, a team of archaeologists excavating farmland outside Poitiers unearthed a shallow grave that defied explanation. At first, it seemed nothing more than an eroded burial pit, until the first fragment of fabric emerged, darkened by centuries of soil. When brushed clean, the pattern revealed a faint red cross stitched onto pale cloth. The researchers froze. It was unmistakable, the symbol of the Knights Templar. Beneath the tattered cloak lay a nearly complete skeleton. Yet something was horribly wrong. The skull was missing. There were no insignia, no weapons, no adornments to identify the man. Only a small cluster of silver deniers scattered near his ribs, stamped with the mark of King Philip V, the very monarch who had ordered the Templars' extermination. The coins dated to the early 1300s, the same years the order fell. Local historians speculated it was a murdered knight, buried in secrecy to conceal his identity. But others noticed the grave's orientation, north to south, not east to west, as was Christian custom. Whoever buried this man defied both church and tradition, as though protecting him from discovery, or from something far more ancient than the wrath of kings. Decades after the discovery, advances in forensic science offered a chance to answer the question that had haunted historians. Who was the man beneath the Templar cloak? In 2009, the remains were subjected to mitochondrial DNA testing at the University of Bordeaux. The results startled researchers. The genetic profile did not match any known patterns common to medieval France. Instead, it carried markers typical of the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically regions corresponding to modern-day Cyprus and coastal Syria. Cyprus had once been the Templars' final stronghold after their expulsion from the Holy Land. It was there that surviving knights regrouped, guarding the remnants of their treasures and secrets before persecution spread to Europe. If the skeleton indeed belonged to a man from that island, it suggested he had journeyed far from exile, possibly carrying something or guarding someone of immense importance. Even more curious, the DNA showed slight deviations inconsistent with ordinary inheritance, as though contaminated by another sample of unknown origin. Some scientists dismissed it as environmental degradation, but others quietly noted that the anomaly appeared localized, repeating only in the marrow of the left femur. The same bone later found etched with an unidentifiable symbol. Whoever this knight was, he did not belong to the soil in which he was buried. He was a foreigner in death, just as he may have been in life, a relic from a vanished brotherhood that refused to die quietly. When the femur was carefully cleaned under magnification, the researchers noticed an anomaly, fine, deliberate grooves running across the bone. At first assumed to be post-mortem damage, closer inspection revealed a precise engraving, a cross enclosed within a six-pointed star. The carving was faint but unmistakably intentional, its lines cut clean and symmetrical, as though etched with a metal blade. No known Templar insignia bore such a mark. The familiar red cross stood alone in their heraldry, never entwined with symbols so distinctly Judaic in origin. Historians debated its meaning. Some suggested it might represent unity between Christian and Hebrew mysticism, a fusion of sacred geometry known only to initiates of a lost esoteric circle within the order. Others proposed something darker, that it signified a heretical sect, one that sought to merge forbidden teachings under the banner of divine illumination. The symbol's geometry matched designs later used by Renaissance alchemists to depict the conjunction of opposites, spirit and matter, light and darkness. Was this simply coincidence or evidence that the Templars' knowledge extended into realms they were never meant to explore? Under infrared scanning, traces of a burned residue lined the grooves, carbonized particles older than the bone itself. Someone had branded it before burial, marking the night not for remembrance, but as a warning. Whatever secret he carried to the grave, even death could not erase the sign of the cross within the star. In 1906, an antiquarian in Genoa purchased a weathered ledger from a private estate sale. Its pages, brittle and salt-stained, once belonged to a merchant captain named Pietro di Bartoli, a trader who sailed the Atlantic routes in the early 1300s. Among his routine entries of cargo and debts, one passage stood out, written in hurried Latin: "A knight of the temple seeks passage to the edge of the world." The date beside it was 1308, the very year the Templars were being hunted across Europe. De Bartoli described the man as cloaked, armed, and bearing a satchel sealed with red wax. He offered no gold, only a carved medallion depicting two riders on a single horse, the ancient Templar emblem. The merchant, fearing royal reprisal, refused him, noting that the knight spoke of lands beyond the sunset, where light endures and the sea swallows all. No further record of the night appears in the journal, but the next day's entry contains a single cryptic line: "He has found another ship. God preserve them if the tales be true." Historians believe this could have been the last documented trace of Arnaud de Rochefort, or of a secret voyage meant to vanish into myth. Folded between two brittle pages of Pietro de Bartoli's journal was something no one expected to find: a rough, hand-drawn chart on vellum, its ink faded but legible. The outlines bore a haunting familiarity, a western coastline strikingly similar to that of the Americas. Long before Columbus, before even the voyages of Prince Henry's navigators, someone had drawn what looked unmistakably like the curve of Brazil, the taper of Central America, and the sweep of the Gulf. At first, experts dismissed it as a coincidence, an imaginative rendering of the Atlantic's unknown reaches. Yet the scale and orientation aligned too precisely with modern maps to ignore. When carbon dated, the parchment yielded a shocking result, early 14th century, consistent with the date of the journal itself. The map was older than any known European depiction of the New World by nearly 2 centuries. Even stranger were the annotations in the margins, written in a mixture of Latin and cipher: Terra Lucis, land of light, and ad finem maris, to the end of the sea. Small crosses marked 3 points along the western shore, each accompanied by a sigil resembling the Templar cross. Who could have drawn such a thing? Some suggested the Templars possessed fragments of lost ancient knowledge, charts inherited from Arab scholars, or even relics from Alexandria's vanished libraries. Others whispered that they had sailed west long before history recorded it, driven by faith or fear, carrying a secret too vast to entrust to kings or popes. If true, the map rewrites not only the story of discovery but of silence itself, a relic that shouldn't exist, yet does, defying every boundary history has drawn. If the Genoese journal is to be believed, Arnaud de Rochefort may not have perished in France at all. As the Templar persecutions reached their peak, he could have fled, guided by the forbidden map, carrying with him relics of the order too dangerous to remain on European soil. Several unverified port records from La Rochelle mention a small vessel departing under moonlight, crewed by foreign knights and laden with sealed chests. None of those men were ever seen again. Sailors along the western coasts later spoke of ghostly lights far out to sea, shimmering like torches on dark waves moving against the wind. Legends grew around a phantom ship eternally voyaging westward, its sails unmarked, its captain silent. Some believed it sank in a storm. Others claimed it was never meant to return. Those who support the legend say the voyage was deliberate, a vanishing by design. If Arnaud's mission was to guard something rather than deliver it, what better hiding place than beyond the known world itself? Perhaps he carried not just relics, but knowledge, the kind that can't be destroyed, only hidden. And somewhere across the ocean, the sea still keeps his secret undisturbed, waiting for the world to rediscover it. By the dawn of the 14th century, King Philip IV of France, Philip the Fair, was a monarch draped in splendor but drowning in debt. The wars against England had drained his treasury, and the Templars, once his financiers and allies, had become his greatest creditors. Their coffers overflowed with silver, their network of commanderies stretched across Europe, and their influence reached even into Rome, to a proud king cornered by debt. They were no longer holy warriors, they were a threat. In 1307, Philip's patience snapped. Acting in secret, he orchestrated a kingdom-wide purge, ordering the arrest of every Templar within France. The official charges spoke of heresy, blasphemy, and devil worship, but the true motive was greed and fear. For Philip knew something the church did not. A knight had escaped the initial dragnet, carrying with him what royal agents called the sacred ledger. This ledger, according to rumors whispered in the royal court, contained not relics or scripture, but names. Nobles, clerics, and kings who had borrowed from the order, bought absolution, or funded forbidden crusades. Its existence threatened to unravel the foundations of both crown and cross. To Philip, the Templars were no longer a brotherhood of faith. They were keepers of secrets that could destroy him. The dungeons beneath the royal palace reeked of smoke and iron. One by one, captured Templars were dragged before inquisitors, their bodies broken, their wills tested against the promise of mercy. Yet even through the agony of the rack and the branding iron, a strange refrain echoed from their confessions. When asked where the order's treasure lay or who commanded their secrets, they whispered the same name, Arnaud. The scribes who recorded the interrogations noted the repetition with unease. Some prisoners claimed Arnaud had fled with the memory of the treasure, a phrase that confounded their torturers. It was not gold, they insisted, not jewels, but knowledge, something so dangerous it could topple kings. Others swore they had seen him last in Paris clutching a sealed ledger, fleeing into the night as the arrests began. To the inquisitors, it was heresy. To Philip, it was confirmation. Somewhere beyond his reach, the one man who could expose his debts, his dealings, and the truth of the Templar vaults was still alive. Orders were issued across Europe. Find the knight called Arnaud de Rochefort, dead or alive. But none succeeded, and as the weeks passed, the name itself became taboo, spoken only in whispers, by men who feared the sound might summon his ghost. Among the courtiers who dared to gossip about the fall of the Templars, one rumor spread like a contagion. Whispers of a book so dangerous that its mere existence could shatter kingdoms. It was called by many names: the Crimson Record, the Ledger of Blood, or simply the Codex. Supposedly written in cipher, it contained meticulous entries of every financial transaction the order had ever made: donations, loans, bribes, and secret contributions to both church and heresy alike. The legend claimed it named every benefactor who had profited from the wars of faith: popes who laundered indulgences, nobles who sold their souls for crusade gold, and monarchs who financed holy campaigns with blood money. If exposed, it would have revealed that the divide between saint and sinner was a fiction sustained by coin. Some chroniclers believed this was the sacred ledger Arnaud carried when he vanished, a document that could explain why Philip IV's fury burned with such desperation. Others saw it as myth, a parable of power and corruption. Yet secret societies in later centuries, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, spoke of a hidden book of accounts guarded by descendants of the Temple. Whether truth or invention, the idea endures: that somewhere in the shadows of history lies a record of mankind's greatest hypocrisy, written in ink, debt, and blood. In 1789, amid the chaos of revolution, a group of scholars cataloging confiscated church documents in Avignon stumbled upon a strange reference buried in a papal correspondence index. The letter, dated 1315, made mention of an archivum umbrarum, the archive of shadows. According to the note, it was established under direct papal command to safeguard certain materials of the dissolved militia Templi, the Knights Templar. The location was never disclosed, but the tone was unmistakable. Whatever these materials were, they were not to be destroyed. They were to be hidden. Subsequent fragments uncovered in Vatican registries hinted that the Archive of Shadows contained not just property deeds or inventories, but manuscripts seized from Templar commanderies, texts too dangerous for public eyes. Among the titles briefly mentioned were De Signis Luxus, on the signs of light, and Codex Occultus, both now considered apocryphal works. The scholars who uncovered the letters soon realized what they had found, or nearly found. Within days, Vatican envoys arrived in Avignon to reclaim the documents. The references were expunged from the library index, and those who handled them were sworn to silence. One of the archivists, before disappearing from records entirely, left a cryptic note in the margin of his ledger: "The shadows do not conceal, they preserve." What could the Church possibly fear more than heresy, perhaps revelation? Among the few documents ever confirmed to reference the Archive of Shadows was a single register entry noted in 1799 by a British antiquarian named Edmund Wren. While conducting research in Avignon, Wren claimed to have found a catalog listing titled De Custode Silenti, of the Keeper of Silence. According to his brief notes, the manuscript described a guardian appointed by oath to watch over the sealed knowledge of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ, a title unmistakably linked to the Templar Order. Wren's correspondence mentions his fascination with the document's phrasing. It referred to a brother erased from record, yet bound to guard what was taken from the light. The implication was chilling that at least one surviving Templar, perhaps Arnaud de Rochefort himself, had been designated as this keeper of silence, charged with ensuring the order's secret remained hidden even after its destruction. When Wren attempted to bring the manuscript to England, his ship was reportedly intercepted off the coast of Marseille. His personal effects were recovered, but the register and all mention of De Custode Silenti vanished. Some later speculated that Vatican agents reclaimed it. Others whispered that the manuscript was cursed, its guardian still protecting it even beyond death. In the years since, only a single ambiguous line survives from Wren's journal. The keeper does not die, he merely waits for the silence to end. Months after Edmund Wren's disappearance, his wife Eliza began writing letters to a close friend in Bath. Her tone shifted from grief to fear. In one letter, dated December 1800, she described a cloaked man who appeared at her garden gate each night at the same hour. He never entered, never spoke, until one evening when she gathered courage to confront him. His voice, she wrote, was as if carried from a great distance, hollow and sorrowful. He told me only this, her letter reads, "The night still walks. He keeps what is his. Tell no one, for the silence must endure." Eliza claimed she felt a chill sweep the air as he vanished into the fog, leaving behind footprints that ended abruptly on the stone path. Her account was dismissed as madness born of grief, yet the details matched local reports of a cloaked figure seen near the ruins of Avignon's old quarter. Some even whispered the impossible, that the keeper of silence, bound to his eternal charge, had come to warn her. After that night, Eliza never wrote again. Her final note, unsigned and trembling, contained only 3 words: "He watches still." Among the oldest Templar legends, whispered only within the inner circles of the order, there was talk of a relic known as Ignis Dei, the fire of God. It was said to be neither weapon nor treasure, but a vessel of divine power, capable of revealing truth or incinerating those deemed unworthy. Chroniclers described it as a shard of celestial light, fallen to earth during the age of prophets and hidden ever since. To gaze upon it, they said, was to see the soul's reflection in fire. By the time of Arnaud de Rochefort, such stories had faded into myth, yet rumors persisted that one knight had been entrusted to carry something beyond salvation itself, a relic too dangerous to rest in the hands of kings or priests. When Philip's soldiers stormed Templar strongholds, certain vaults were found empty, their stone altars scorched as though touched by lightning. Many believe Arnaud bore Ignis Dei into exile, choosing flight over betrayal. The Templar chronicles make one cryptic reference to a light contained within flesh, a phrase some interpret as metaphor, others as warning. Whether the relic was holy or accursed, its purpose remains lost, but the fear it inspired endures, glowing faintly through the centuries like embers that refuse to die. In the shadowed valleys of the Pyrenees, where storms gather with sudden ancient fury, locals still speak of Le Chevalier Perdu, the lost knight. The legend endures across generations, a solitary rider appearing before tempests, cloaked in light so fierce that his features cannot be seen. Shepherds describe the glow as a burning mist, neither fire nor lightning, moving with deliberate grace across the high ridges. He is always silent, they say, his horse leaving no hoofprints on the sodden earth. The earliest written account dates to 1623, when a parish priest recorded a night of light, seen moments before a monastery roof collapsed in a storm. In the centuries that followed, similar sightings resurfaced before landslides, floods, and strange bursts of ball lightning in the same remote valleys. Some believe he is a spirit bound by divine punishment, others that he guards something still buried in those mountains, a relic carried there by Arnaud de Rochefort himself. Modern hikers and locals alike continue to report the same apparition, a glowing rider vanishing into the storm's heart, his presence heralded by an unnatural stillness and the faint scent of smoke. Whether phantom or phenomenon, Le Chevalier Perdu endures as the living echo of a vanished order, forever riding the border between myth and memory. In 2016, a joint French-Spanish geological survey conducted infrared and magnetometric scans across the upper Pyrenean valleys, intending to map fault lines hidden beneath the limestone. But when the data came back, one anomaly stood out: an elongated magnetic field pulsing precisely along the route where locals claimed Le Chevalier Perdu appeared. The readings showed a concentration of iron oxides and residual magnetism inconsistent with the surrounding rock, as though the ground itself had been scorched and restructured by intense heat. The researchers, cautious of folklore, avoided drawing conclusions. Yet, when the scans were overlaid with centuries of eyewitness maps, the alignment was uncanny. Each major sighting corresponded to the anomaly's path within a margin of meters. Attempts to explain it through lightning strikes or military debris failed. No metallic remnants were ever recovered. Some physicists proposed natural piezoelectric discharges, a rare phenomenon producing spectral light during tectonic stress. But the locals were unmoved. To them, the instruments had simply proven what their ancestors already knew, that something still moves beneath the storms, carrying its own light through the centuries. Whether a trick of science or a haunting echo of Arnaud's vow, the valley remains a place where reason falters, and the impossible feels close enough to touch. In the quiet hills near Carcassonne stands the crumbling estate of the Rochefort lineage, a family whose ancestry, they claim, traces back to Arnaud's younger brother, Guillaume de Rochefort. Their archives, though fragmented, reveal an unbroken line of nobles, scholars, and priests who guarded a peculiar heraldic mark, an inverted Templar cross encircled by 12 silver stars. The inversion, according to local lore, was no symbol of heresy, but a vow of secrecy, a reminder that their loyalty was pledged not to the church, but to the hidden cause of their ancestor. The family's oldest surviving tapestry depicts a knight kneeling before a radiant object, his eyes averted, his arms crossed in penance. At his feet, a Latin motto reads, Lucem non teneo, sed servo. I do not possess the light, I guard it. For generations, the Rocheforts have repeated this phrase at weddings and funerals alike, as though bound to an ancient covenant. To outsiders, it is a curious family legend. But to those who study the Templar mysteries, the Rochefort crest and its inverted cross suggests something more, a quiet defiance, a bloodline shaped by guilt and duty, preserving the last ember of a secret that refused to die with Arnaud. In 2005, a team of geneticists from the University of Toulouse conducted a comparative DNA study on remains attributed to medieval French nobility. Among the samples tested were fragments obtained under strict supervision from the skeleton unearthed near Poitiers decades earlier. To their astonishment, one of the mitochondrial markers matched a living donor, a member of the Rochefort family. The genetic sequence passed through the maternal line displayed a rare mutation, an anomaly scarcely found in Western Europe. It was identical to that found in the Poitiers remains, effectively linking the living Rochefort bloodline to the ancient bones buried beneath the Templar cloak. Yet the finding deepened the mystery rather than solved it. The same mutation appeared to carry a secondary irregularity, an unexpected base pair distortion, as if altered by exposure to radiation or an unknown environmental factor. Further testing revealed no contamination. The anomaly was biological, embedded in both past and present. For the Rochefort descendants, it confirmed what had long been whispered, that their blood carried something ancient, perhaps sacred or cursed. When asked about the results, the family declined interviews, issuing only a terse statement through their attorney. The lineage of the keeper endures. Scientists could not explain the mutation. Historians could only ask, what exactly had Arnaud's family inherited besides his name? In 1721, an aging Rochefort patriarch, Arnaud de Rochefort, penned a diary entry that historians still struggle to interpret. Written in flowing ink on vellum, darkened by candle smoke, it reads, "We guard his promise until the age of illumination. Then shall the light be unbound, and the keeper's task fulfilled." The phrasing suggests more than mere family pride. It implies a covenant passed through generations, tied directly to Arnaud's vanished mission. Etienne's diary contains no explanation of what the promise entailed, only scattered references to the hidden vessel and the burden of the light. Later pages describe a midnight gathering in a stone chapel where each male heir swore an oath not to reveal, but to remember. The ritual ended with the extinguishing of a single candle, a symbolic gesture of darkness guarding light. When the diary resurfaced in a private collection 2 centuries later, scholars connected its language to Masonic texts emerging at the same time. The parallels were uncanny. The same reverence for hidden wisdom, the same prophecy of an age of illumination. Could the Rochefort vow have seeded those movements, or were they all descendants of the same forgotten brotherhood? Whatever Arnaud's promise was, it survived in silence, a secret carried not in relics or scripture, but in blood and belief, waiting for its appointed dawn. In 2018, a team of urban archaeologists from the University of Limoges began mapping a network of catacombs sealed since the 17th century. Their mission was routine, documenting burial niches and forgotten ossuaries beneath the city. But in one narrow corridor, blocked by a collapsed archway, they uncovered something that defied categorization. Behind the rubble lay a hidden chamber, its walls unmarked by Christian iconography. Instead, at the far end, a single Latin inscription had been chiseled deep into the limestone, Discessit immundo non autem veritate. He left the world, but not the truth. The phrase was carved with precision, the letters untouched by moisture, as if waiting for discovery. Nearby lay fragments of a Templar cross, its edges blackened by soot. The chamber contained no bones, no relics, only the message, the cross, and the faint scent of burnt wax lingering in the stale air. When word of the find reached the church archives, the response was immediate. The site was closed for preservation, and the inscriptions photographed and all further study restricted. Yet the team's notes suggest they found more. A faint sigil beneath the carving, identical to the mark found on the Poitiers femur, the cross within the star. Whoever wrote the words had not simply remembered Arnaud de Rochefort. They had preserved his final echo, etched into stone, where silence itself was meant to guard it. During the Limoges excavation, archivists recovered a bundle of parchment fragments sealed within a rusted iron coffer near the catacombs' entrance. The documents, later dated to the 15th century, appeared to be copies of earlier ecclesiastical texts, records of inquisitorial proceedings long thought lost. Yet several of the manuscripts bore precise, deliberate mutilations. Entire sections had been cut away with a blade. The missing portions all shared one detail in common. Each surviving line referenced Miles Lucis, the Knight of the Light. What remained hinted at something profound. One passage read, "He who guards the light does not die, but walks where the stars meet the earth." Another described pilgrim bound to the western sea, carrying the flame of Zion beyond the reach of the world. The recurring title, Knight of the Light, appeared nowhere else in Templar or church documentation, suggesting a figure deliberately erased from history. The Vatican quickly reclaimed the fragments, citing archival sensitivity. But digital scans, leaked months later, confirmed the cuts were not the work of age or decay. They were surgical, recent, and precise. Someone, even now, did not want the story of the Knight of the Light to be told, perhaps because it was still unfolding. Centuries have passed since Brother Arnaud de Rochefort vanished into that storm, yet his presence lingers like a whisper between the lines of history. Every discovery, the letter, the map, the bones, the bloodline, forms a pattern too deliberate to dismiss, yet too elusive to define. The records end, but the signs persist. The cross within the star, the words carved in stone, the light that refuses to die. Was Arnaud truly lost to the world? Or did he become something beyond it? An idea, a guardian, a keeper of the hidden flame. Perhaps his disappearance was not an escape, but a transformation. The Templars vowed obedience to faith, yet Arnaud's journey seems bound to a higher order of silence, one that transcended the church, the crown, even mortality itself. If the legends are to be believed, he did not fail his mission. He simply removed it from reach, sealing truth inside myth. The trail ends where it began, in the darkness of a storm. But in that darkness, a faint light still flickers, a candle that has burned for 700 years, refusing to be extinguished. And maybe that is the final answer, that some truths are not meant to be found, only protected, until the world is ready to see them.